The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
You may have seen me, I make notes during the trial. I probably filled up 2 legal pads full of notes during the trial, but the closings, I want to just listen, and that's what I did. But I wrote down 2 things in the closing. One was a statement by Ms. Ross that the evidence was overwhelming and powerful. And then I also wrote down what Ms. Beck said, that I'm required to set aside my emotions. That's the same thing that we tell jurors in what, and we're giving them their job. I would, that's the way I have to approach this. And I did. Both of those statements are correct. I'll now announce the verdict. In the state of Georgia versus Jose Antonio Ibarra, case SU 24CR0323, count 1, malice murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 3, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 4, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 5, kidnapping with bodily injury. I find the defendant guilty. Count 6, aggravated assault with intent to rape. I find the defendant guilty. Count 7, aggravated battery. I find the defendant guilty. Count 8, obstructing or hindering a 911 call. I find the defendant guilty. Count 9, tampering with evidence. I find the defendant guilty. Count 10, Peeping Tom. I find the defendant guilty. I certainly will allow both sides to look at this if you want to do it. The next step is sentencing. I'm prepared to go forward with that now, or if either side suggests that you need a few minutes, an hour break or something to do that, then I'll certainly do that as well. Consider that.
We have one moment.
Sure. I understand.
We'll come back for something.
I understand. We will recess till 12:30. Recess till 12:30. Will that work?
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir. Okay, thank you.
Judge Patrick Haggard delivering his verdict. They are guilty of all charges. For Jose Ibarra, justice served for Laken Riley, that 22-year-old nursing student who was just jogging, who was minding her own business that day when the prosecution says she was hunted down. A man who just wanted to hunt females.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Let's get you into court for the beginning of that hearing, starting with a victim impact statement from Laken Riley's mother. This is Allison Phillips.
You ready?
Yes,
Ms.
sir.
Ross? You may proceed.
For sentencing, we would first like to present victim impact testimony to His Honor, and then I will proceed with talking about merger or issues like that in the sense that the state would be seeking. But I'm going to go at this time and call the witnesses up who wish to be heard for victim impact. So first I would like to call Allison Phillips. And why don't Allison, John, and Lauren come on up together, the three of you. And defense counsel has agreed that there's no need to swear the witnesses for the statement. If you could come over here, Ms. Phillips. So before the court, Your Honor, first will be Allison Phillips, and she's Laken's mom. Behind her is her husband and Laken's stepfather, John Phillips, and then their daughter, Laken's sister, Lauren.
Your Honor, on February 22nd of 2024, our family and friends were given a life sentence without a chance of parole. Jose Ibarra took no pity on my scared, panicked, and struggling child. There is no end to the pain, suffering, and loss that we have experienced or will continue to endure. On that horrific day, my precious daughter was attacked, beaten, and shown no mercy. She fought for her life and dignity and to save herself from being brutally raped. This sick, twisted, and evil coward showed no regard for Laken or human life. We are asking that same be done to him. Laken had a beautiful and bright future. She was smart, hardworking, kind, thoughtful, and most importantly, she was a child of God. She had a personal relationship with Jesus, and she loved being the hands and feet of his hands and feet in this world. She shared her love for our Lord with others through her mission trips, working with elderly at the nursing homes, and through her nursing career. Laken was an amazing friend, sister, niece, daughter, and granddaughter. Anyone who knew her knew about her loving heart. Laken's life was not the only life taken on that day that Jose Ibarra attacked her. The life of her family and friends was taken too. None of us will ever be the same. This monster took away our chances to see Laken graduate from nursing school. He took away our ability to meet our future son-in-law. He destroyed our chances of meeting our grandchildren. And he took my best friend. He ripped away every beautiful memory we will ever be able to make with her again. This horrific individual robbed us all of our hopes and dreams for Laken. Your Honor, I'm asking you to please give Jose Ibarra the same thing he gave us when he made the choice to take Laken's life and destroy ours. He showed no mercy on Laken when she was begging for her life. There's no end to the pain and suffering that he inflicted on our family and our friends. I'm asking you to please give this monster life without any chance of parole so that he never gets the chance to hurt anyone else ever again.
This is John Phillips, Your Honor.
I'd like to thank Your Honor for the opportunity to speak today. I truly appreciate it. I heard in the opening statements from the defense that the loss of a life that was apparently full of promise is tragic. Well, I'm here today to let Your Honor and the entire world know that Laken's life was not apparently full of promise, but instead was abundantly and exceptionally full of promise, and was a shining beacon in the life of everyone that knew her, that ever came in contact with her. I'm so proud of Laken and the beautiful person she was. And while I can stand here and try to tell the world the things that made her such a wonderful person, as well as the many things we have all been robbed and deprived of, I think one of her last journal entries dated 12/17/23 says it best. So here we go. To my future husband. As silly as I feel writing this, my old small group leader once recommended it, so here I am. To my future husband, I want you to know that I'm thinking about you. I'm working every day to become the best wife I can be, but working through my current relationships to best prepare me for ours and our kids one day. I'm focusing on God and what He defines as a faithful Christian wife, and so that I can best embody those characteristics. I pray that you know that it is with my full faith and trust in God that I know this relationship has been handcrafted by Him. I pray that we continue to glorify the Lord, prioritize Him in every aspect of our lives, and raise our family, our future family, to be God-fearing Christians as well. I pray God is the center of our relationship as it is a gift from Him. I thank Him for you before I even know you, and can't wait to love you in the best way I know how for the rest of our lives. I pray you know and feel the importance of my love and hopes for our relationship. No matter what challenges we face, I pray that our trust in God and love for one another overrules the obstacle. May our relationship last forever. Your future wife, Laken. That, Your Honor, was our beautiful Laken. That, Your Honor, is just a glimpse of what was tragically and brutally taken from her and us that day. The best daughter, sister, granddaughter, friend, and overall person that you could ever hope to meet. While it's true that none of our lives will ever be the same, we refuse to let this person rob Laken of the hope she gave to her family, loved ones, friends, and the world as a whole. We will proudly carry this hope on in her name in the days ahead and for the rest of our lives, because together we can all keep hope alive. So today, I plead with this court to protect the world from this truly evil person by sentencing him to prison for life without the possibility of parole for any reason, so that he can never have the opportunity to do this to anyone else ever again. Thank you, Your Honor.
Next, Your Honor, is Lauren Phillips.
Your Honor, I wish I could truly put into words how much the tragedy that occurred on February 22nd, 2024 has affected me, but I don't think I'll ever be able to do so. With that being said, I'm going to attempt with the best of my ability to do that for you today. My name is Lauren Phillips, and I had the amazing privilege of living with Laken Riley as my older sister. Laken was and will forever be my most favorite person. She was my biggest role model, and I looked up to her in every way. She brought the joy that I needed into my life and never failed to make me laugh. There was absolutely nothing that I wouldn't do for Laken, and nothing that she wouldn't do for me. Laken was my biggest protector, and I always had this sense of comfort and safety in her presence. We have been inseparable ever since the moment I was born, and I've been lost ever since she was senselessly stripped from our lives by Jose Ibarra. I now have this hole in my heart and in my life that I know will never be filled. I had to walk the stage of my high school graduation without my biggest supporter and cheerleader in the crowd. I had to finish my senior year of high school which most would say is the happiest and most surreal part of your life, it was simply the opposite for me. I had to turn 18 and become an adult without the one person I looked up to there by my side. I had to get accepted into my dream school, the University of Georgia, without my sister telling me how proud of me she is, and finally getting to live in the same town together again. I now have the burden of dealing with the fact that my best friend and sister will never come home again. She'll never send me another daily good morning text, funny TikTok, or silly Snapchat. The true sense of joy I felt when she would randomly surprise me will never happen again. I will never get to hear her infectious laugh or see her light of a smile ever again. I now get to explain to people when they ask me if I have a sibling that I no longer have one, and not just because she passed away, but because she got brutally attacked and murdered. I cannot walk around my own college campus because I'm terrified of people like Jose Ibarra. My parents will never be the same after losing their daughter in this tragic way. Seeing their heartbreak is excruciating. We were once a happy family of 4, and now there is an evident hole where her presence is forever felt. We're a broken family of 3, struggling to find out how to live this life through the silence and emptiness that her absence has left behind. The joy that she brought to our home has been completely replaced with grief, and we are just left holding the pieces of a life that will never feel whole again. She will not get to be at my wedding and next to me as my maid of honor. I get to deal with explaining to my future children what happened to their Aunt Laken and why they won't ever be able to get to feel her love or be spoiled by her. All of these experiences were and will be stripped of me against my will, and I now live in a constant state of fear, anger, and sadness. I think about how my sister saw exactly what was coming and had no way of preventing it. I think about how scared she must have been and how that man is the only one to truly witness that scene. I'm not sure why he did this to my Laken, and I know I will never understand. I've waited for him to have a reason, but as the details of this case have unfolded, I realize I'll never get any peace or closure. What Jose Ibarra did to my sister is almost unbearable to listen to. I am completely disgusted having to even look and be in the same room as him. That predator is inhumane and is the epitome of evil. I have no doubt in my mind that the monster sitting in this room with us today is the same monster that encountered my precious sister on February 22nd, 2024, where he proceeded to attack, assault, beat, murder, and attempt to rape her. Jose Antonio Ibarra has completely and utterly ruined my life, and I can only hope and pray that he receives a sentence that ruins his. Thank you.
Call Jason Riley.
The sister has been reiterating exactly what the mother said as the very first person to speak. Allison Phillips, the mother, said the life of her family and friends were taken too when this happened to Laken. And Lauren Phillips, the sister, says, I've been lost ever since this happened. We are going to take a break. When we come back, we'll hear from Laken Riley's father. Stay tuned.
This is the Court TV podcast.
Back now to Georgia, where we are watching the sentencing hearing for Jose Ibarra. The 26-year-old from Venezuela was found guilty earlier today for attempting to rape and then brutally murdering 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley. 10 charges, guilty on all 10 of those charges. We want to take you back inside the courtroom now. The court is hearing victim impact statements from Laken's family and friends. So far, the court has heard from 3 family members. Up next, we'll take you in for the beginning of Laken's dad's statement. This is Jason Riley.
Your Honor, I stand here today as a grieving father whose heart was shattered in ways I never thought possible. My daughter, Laken Riley, was not just our child. She was the light of my life, the person who brought joy to every room she entered. And now that light has been extinguished forever, taken from us in the most senseless and violent way imaginable. The pain I feel is unexplainable. Every day I am reminded that my daughter is gone. I will never hear her laugh again, never see her smile, never hold her hand or feel her hug. She was taken from us, from her family, from her friends, from her future. Our world has been torn apart, and no matter what happens here today, nothing will ever bring her back. I am haunted by the thought of the fear she must have felt in those final moments, and it breaks my heart knowing that she suffered. I have to live with the fact that I could not protect her when she needed me the most. The pain of not being there, of not being able to stop what happened to her, is something I will never escape. My daughter had so many dreams, so many hopes for the future. She had worked so hard to become a nurse, to work with children and spread the love of God. She was a loving, kind, and intelligent young woman. She had so much to offer the world, and her life was taken from her far too soon. I will never get to see her achieve those dreams. The void that has been left is unmeasurable. The impact of her loss on our family is immeasurable. As a father, I am forever burdened with the pain of losing my child. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to navigate this grief, trying to make sense of the world that took my daughter from our family. But I will never forget her. I will keep her memory alive, and I hope justice is served for her, not only because I'm her father, but because she deserves it. I ask that you consider this life that was taken, the pain that has been caused, and the lasting effects of this tragedy on everyone who loved our amazing daughter, Laken Hope Riley. Thank you.
Lily Steiner, Sophia Madonna, Connolly Connolly's only the first row.
Good afternoon. As I stated in my testimony, my name is Connolly Huth. Laken Riley was my roommate for 2 years, my devoted and loyal running partner for 2 years, and my best friend forever. I stand before you looking at you through eyes that have seen, ears that have heard, and a heart that has felt emotions no body, and especially no 22-year-old should have to. On February 21st, my life was complete. I woke up on February 21st at 7:30 a.m., walked out of my bedroom door to streamers hung outside of my bedroom from the top of the door frame to the floor, balloons blown, decorations taped, and gifts presented precisely on my kitchen island. Laken did it. It was my 22nd birthday. She had a 5 a.m. nursing clinical, yet she woke up at 4:30 a.m. to make me feel loved and appreciated, because that is who Laken Riley was. I went to dinner that night with my roommates and my family, and ended the night with my roommates, and especially Laken, showering me with love. It is clear and evident that this defendant, Jose Ibarra, has never felt this type of love and appreciation. I've been impacted by this brutal cowardice and preventable tragedy in every way, shape, and form. I no longer have a best friend that I relay every thought or worry to. I no longer run every day. I lost my partner, and I lost the joy of what running was before Laken was taken from us. I cannot imagine running when I constantly am looking over my shoulder in public, wondering if I am next. I live with excruciating guilt every day that I was not accompanying Laken on this run.
and that it was her and not me. And I hope and pray that it will never happen again to anyone. Along with this, the crime that this monster committed ruined one of the most special places in our friendship. Lake Herrick was Laken and I's safe space. We loved to go on running adventures throughout the park together. We had a code called dock time. Dock time consisted of either ending our runs or taking a calming walk to the dock at Lake Herrick. Here, we would sit in silence, play music, or talk while sitting on the dock, simply enjoying each other's presence. All it took was a text saying, "I need dock time," and we were on the way to debrief whatever we needed to discuss. Now, when I think of this beautiful spot, I think of the terror and horror my sweet best friend had to endure at the hands of this monster. I think of all the things I have to do now to remember Laken. At times, I forget how she laughs or how she sounds, and I have to resort to looking through my camera roll of hundreds of videos I have. Videos where I talk to my future kids and introduce them to their Aunt Laken in college. To talk to my friend, I have to drive 20 minutes to her grave and sit and talk to her with no response, screaming at the sky. When I want to remember her, I have to go to my closet and pull out her clothes I was given and smell them to remember how she smelled. As I stand up here today, I am wearing one of Laken's shirts. This shirt has sat in my closet for months, not because I'm saving it for an occasion, but because I cannot afford to not remember these things like this about her. I sit in therapy week after week trying to heal February 22nd and life after. When I hear emergency vehicle sirens, I am triggered. I sat that day and watched dozens of emergency personnel drive by as I sat helpless. My roommates and I had to draw our own conclusions that the pinnacle of our house was no longer here when we watched a coroner drive by us after sitting at the fields for 2 hours with no answers. Our fears were confirmed when we received a university-wide email that alerted students, faculty, and staff that a female was deceased. I lost faith in humanity the day that my kind, selfless, beautiful, smart, loving, and perfect best friend left this earth. I will never understand why it had to happen in the first place, but more importantly, why out of all people, it had to be her. The world lost a girl who would take the clothes off her back for her family, friends, and even strangers, who studied and devoted her life to Christ and nursing so she could save lives and make a difference in this world. Laken cannot be replaced. If you had the ability to bring her back out of all this, I would give up every earthly possession I have to see her infectious smile, hear her contagious laugh, and her infamous "love you, girl," and I would hug her neck, but you cannot. Laken made this world, and more specifically my world, better. My first 2 years of college, when I did not know Laken, I went home all the time. My last 2 years of college, you had to drag me home. That was because Laken was my person. So, Your Honor, I wish to proclaim the maximum sentence for the defendant, as I will never be the same, her loving, beautiful family will never be the same, and this world will never be the same. I hope this sentencing sets a precedent so it stops with Laken and fails to happen to anyone again. Laken was a hero and a warrior. She died a hero and a warrior, and she is a hero and warrior to all of us. Laken was my source of light, joy, and unwavering happiness. So when her life was taken, so was the part of me that knew how to truly feel those things again. Thank you, Your Honor.
The Court TV podcast will return.
The state would also have a few more items to present for victim impact, and then I'll address the indictment with the court. And one of the things I wanted to share with the court is that a lot of times when we hear victim impact evidence, it is very much so the way that we hear it here in court. Hold on, I'm going to pause this for you. But what we have in this case is something that I ran across in my review of the evidence in this case, which is really 1 minute of when or where this court will be able to get the true impact of what the murder of Laken Riley did to her family and the impact of his actions on her family. Because what the investigators did in this case is, as you know, They were all wearing body cam videos, and there's hundreds of hours of it in here. And there is one moment where, and I'm just going to play 1 minute of it, just 1 minute of the horror that this family has gone through in the last 9 months and what they're going to continue to go through for the rest of their lives. And it is the moment that they learned that their daughter was dead. And in this video clip that I'm showing, which I've marked as states 333, at the top right corner, it's at 1950, you'll see a black truck.
Our daughter is late. Our daughter is what? It's my daughter. Okay, let's step over here. Come on, let's go. All right, come on. Come over here, all right? All right. Come on the road. Come on the road. Take a minute. It's not good. I don't want to tell you yes or no because I don't have names. I don't know who anybody is. I do know that this is a pretty serious incident.
That's what they endured. And that's how it was on that day when they came here to look for their daughter. And what it took away, you heard from her friends and family, and some of the things that you even heard in the trial. You got a little peek, just a little peek, about the personality of Laken Riley. For example, in Lily's 911 call, one of the things she says is, Laken never misses class. Never misses class. That's the kind of person she was. And in our review of all the evidence in this case, some of the things we had to look at were the social media presence of everyone, and there was a lot of digital evidence in this case. And the review of the digital evidence, I want to share with you just some of it, which has been marked State's Exhibit 336, is that Laken was a very joyful and quite silly, playful person. And a lot of that is viewed in her social media. And the Ring doorbell. Running. Same race. And these are just little snippets that we saw in the investigation that we thought would be important to share with the court, that shows not only the type of person that she was, that you just heard from her friends and family, but the true impact that her murder had on her parents. But more than that, one of the things that the court is permitted to consider in victim impact testimony is the impact that her death has on this community. And in that regard, the investigative team has spent a great deal of time out there at the crime scene, Lake Herrick, all of those trails, and looking for things, measuring things, just going about the daily jobs of homicide investigators and homicide prosecutors. And one thing that we noticed that's still there is States 335. It's a mural, a memorial to Laken Riley that is still up there to this day, that shows the impact of her death on this community. And that is something that Your Honor is permitted to consider in deciding what would be an appropriate sentence in this case. And everyone is correct, and I'm sure we'll hear it. Whatever you do, Judge, you can't bring her back, and it's horrible. But what you can do is give comfort with your sentence. And what you can do and what you are permitted to do, and what I urge this court to do, and what the law permits this court to do, is to exercise your discretion and your judgment in a way that brings comfort to this community, and in a way that a sentence which appropriately reflects the harm that was done in this case. And a sentence of life without the possibility of parole would bring comfort to this community. And no matter what your sentence is today, and it will be litigated from here to 40 years from now, there is at least one person in this courtroom who will inherit it, and that is Lauren Phillips. That is Laken's younger sister. And she should never, first of all, she's growing up without her sister. She's gonna have to deal with elderly parents alone. Her children won't have an aunt. She is an only child. And she should not have to worry 30 years from now, 40 years from now, if he comes up for parole, should he might get out. She should never have to worry about that. And your sentence can ensure that she will not have to worry about that. And so in looking at the indictment in this case, count 1, the offense of malice murder, which this defendant has been found guilty of, in this particular case carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. It carries a minimum sentence of life imprisonment with the possibility of parole. The state is requesting that you sentence this defendant to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, not only due to the victim impact testimony, but also because if you read the indictment, which you have obviously, and you're familiar with the facts of the case because you've heard the case, there are several statutory aggravators in this case that separates this case from a regular murder case. And yes, there is malice murder, and all malice murder is bad. I'm not saying there's a malice murder that isn't bad, but there are some malice murders which are more aggravated than others, and this is one of them. Kidnapping with bodily injury, which is the felony murder in count 2, which by the way would be vacated as a matter of law, but not the kidnapping itself, which is count 5. But kidnapping with bodily injury is an aggravating statutory factor under our sentencing scheme in the state of Georgia. It makes malice murder worse than regular murder. And for that reason alone, you should sentence this defendant to life without the possibility of parole. Aggravated battery, which is also in this indictment and which is also the facts, and it's also something he's been convicted of, is also a statutory aggravator under our statutory scheme, which makes this murder different and worse than a regular malice murder. So there are aggravating circumstances, which you have already heard, which I will not repeat to you, but that are not only recognized by the facts, but are recognized by our statutory sentencing scheme. So going down the rest of the indictment, felony murder count 2 is vacated as a matter of law. Felony murder count 3 would be vacated as a matter of law. Felony murder count 4 would be vacated as a matter of law. On count 5, kidnapping with bodily injury, the state is asking you to sentence this defendant to a sentence of life imprisonment with the possibility of parole, which is the maximum for that count. And we are going to ask that you run that consecutive to count 1, a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for the malice murder. Count 6 is aggravated assault with intent to rape. It does not merge. In fact, it is a separate crime under these circumstances. The penalty for that is 1 to 20 years in prison. The state would be asking you to sentence this defendant to 20 years to serve in prison. Count 7 of the indictment, the aggravated battery, would merge as a matter of law into count 1, so we would not request a sentence on that count. Count 8, obstruction or hindering a person making an emergency telephone call, is a misdemeanor. The maximum penalty for that is 12 months to serve in a county jail. We ask that you sentence him to that and run it consecutive to any other sentence that you impose in this case. Count 9, tampering with evidence, the way that it is actually alleged in the indictment and factually it is a misdemeanor. So the maximum for that is 12 months to serve in the county jail, we ask that you sentence him to that and run it consecutive to any other sentence that you impose in this case. And finally, count 10 of the indictment, Peeping Tom, is a felony which carries a penalty between 1 to 5 years in prison. We ask that you sentence him to 5 years to serve in prison to run consecutive to count 1. So to sum it up, the sentence would be on count 1, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Count 5, life imprisonment with the possibility of parole to run consecutive to count 1. Count 6, 20 years to serve to run consecutive. Count 7 will merge. Count 8, 12 months to serve to run consecutive. Count 9, 12 months to serve to run consecutive. And count 10, 5 years to serve to run consecutive. And that is the sentence that the state is requesting.
Mr. Donnelly?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So obviously the court is aware that on count 1, there's really only 2 options for the court. It's an automatic life sentence. The only option is whether the court can indicate that it should be without the possibility of future parole. We're asking the court to not impose that. The life without parole. Getting a life sentence is automatic. There's certainly no guarantee of parole, and would be uncertain, and it would be many decades in the future. And we do not oppose the state's recommendation that the life sentence, which is also mandatory on count 5, be made consecutive. We certainly, just to state the obvious, trust that the court will not consider for sentencing purposes the fact that Mr. Ibarra had a trial. The defense has made every attempt, made every effort to do its job and to pursue this process in a way to respect both the process itself and also to not cause any disrespect toward the feelings of Ms. Riley's loved ones. And if anything like that has happened, it certainly was not intended. And the defense is not immune to the sensitivity of this case, again, to not only her loved ones, but to the greater community. The state's request is not unexpected to us. We anticipated that, and it's certainly understandable. And there is, though, a divide there. The state, while it is understandable the request that they make, the court, there's some separation given here in this process, and the court will be the one to impose it. So our request that you give consecutive life sentences on counts 1 and count 5. We have no position on the remaining counts. We'll send a message that to whatever future custodian of Mr. Ibarra as to the gravity of this crime and the gravity of this situation. That the court has expressed an intention for, it's obviously a legal fiction that he would serve 2 life sentences behind bars, but the law allows that, and it does, it sends that message to the future custodians as to the gravity. But the withholding of the life without parole aspect of count 1 would at least give Mr. Ibarra the sliver of incentive to reflect and conduct himself with some recognition of that reflection. The state agency and the staff of that agency, who will be tasked with supervising his custody, will have the opportunity to monitor him closely for, again, many years, many decades into the future. And it's impossible to know the future, obviously. But by imposing life sentences without removing the future custodians to the ability to do their job is our request at this time. And we also would point out that given his status with there is an immigration hold, that were he ever in the future to be released, it would only to be deported. And that's all I have. We leave it in the discretion of the court. Thank you.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Before I announce the sentence, let me, I just have a couple of thoughts. One is, oftentimes people use the term closure at an event like this, and I acknowledge that there's no such thing as closure. There will not be closure. This is just another stage or event in this tragedy, and that's the way I view that. People mean well by saying that, but it's I've heard it explained that when you have something like this that impacts one or many, you even have to make a conscious effort to breathe at sometimes. And that just comes on you at any particular, you just don't know what's going to bring it on you. And you realize that you do make it through the day, but you don't know how you did it. But I also, and this goes back to what Kerry Howell was saying, that, as many times as you reflect on the loss, at some point you start smiling about the memories, and I'm hopeful that at some point that takes over to a certain extent. But there's very little, including the sentence of Mr. Ibarra, that's going to help much, and I acknowledge that. With that, Mr. Ibarra, if you will please stand. Count 1, malice murder. I sentence you to life without the possibility of parole. Count 2 will be vacated as a matter of operation of law. Count 3, vacated by operation of law. Count 4, vacated by operation of law. Count 5, life in prison consecutive to count 1. Count 6, 20 years to serve consecutive to count 5. Count 7 will merge with count 1. Count 8, 12 months consecutive to count 6. Strike that. 12 months, but I don't want it to 6. It's just going to be consecutive. Count 9, 12 months consecutive. Count 10, 5 years consecutive to count 6. So that would mean the misdemeanors would come after the felonies. That will be the sentence. Mr. Ibarra, I will advise you that you have 30 days from today to seek any post-judgment relief in the form of a motion for a new trial or appealing this case directly. If you make a motion for a new trial and that is denied, you have 30 days from that date to file your first appeal, first level of appeal. Court will appoint a lawyer to represent you if you cannot afford one. I'll also advise you that you have 4 years from the date that your conviction becomes final in order to file a habeas corpus petition. Mr. Donnelly, can you tell me, are you all going to be involved in the next stage?
That remains to be seen, but my understanding is that we will remain on at the court's appointment until unless relieved by conflict counsel.
All right, and you'll make those arrangements.
We will communicate that with Mr. Ibarra and with the court.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Ms. Ross?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.